you've heard of a Proverbs 31 woman, but I think it's much funnier to say a Proverbs 9 woman. Only because there are two women described in Proverbs 9. Okay. A woman of wisdom and a woman of folly. And I just think it's funny to describe someone as a Proverbs 9 woman. You don't know if it's a compliment or an insult.
Okay. Yeah, I could see that. What I thought was interesting about a Proverbs 31 woman is that it's only the second half of Proverbs 31.
Yeah.
You get to 31 and you think, oh, this is the chapter all about women. And you go, wait a minute. Wait. When did women start being talked about here?
Yeah. I thought it's interesting. I didn't know this before, but Proverbs 31, this description of a woman who fears the Lord is an acrostic. I didn't know that.
I didn't pay attention to that, but
it's not in English. In English, every verse starts with she, at least in my Bible. But in Hebrew, it says, it has a footnote saying that starting in verse 10, it's an acrostic poem. Anyways, we are in the book of Proverbs.
Yes, the Proverbs of Solomon, the son of David, the king of Israel.
I think it's fair to note these are not all from Solomon.
Correct.
And it's unclear to me when it stops being Solomon, because then it starts being Solomon again later.
Right.
So at least some of the time it's not Solomon. And, the last two chapters are, Agur and King Lemuel. People who I haven't heard their names before.
Right.
It's not King of Israel, is it? It's not King of Judah. They no. As far as I know, they weren't listed in the Book of Chronicles or the Book of Kings. So I don't know who King Lemuel is. Maybe I should look that up and figure out who is he the king of.
Okay, so when I started reading through Proverbs, I thought, well, I think I'll just try to pick one of the Proverbs out of each chapter, and if we're really fast, we can get through 31 chapters in 60 minutes with me just saying this one from this psalm, and each of us getting one, and we have 30 seconds to highlight one of the Proverbs. It quickly fell apart for me because when I got to chapter 3, chapter 1 and 2, no, not hard. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Fools despise wisdom and instruction. Hear, my son, your father's instruction. Do not forsake your mother's teaching. Okay, those hit me from chapter 1. Chapter 2, make your ear attentive to wisdom, incline your heart to understanding, verse 2. And then I got to chapter 3, and I said, whoa, chapter 3:3. Do not let kindness and truth leave you. Bind them around your neck. Write them on the tablet of your heart. Oh, wait, 3:5. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Do not lean on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your path straight. We're at 3:6 now. So 3:3, 3:5, 3:6, 3:7. Do not be wise in your own eyes. For the fear of the Lord, and turn away from evil. Verse 9. Honor the Lord with your wealth, and from the first of all your produce. So it got where I thought, I can't just pick one from each chapter. And so I switched in my thinking to highlight a few that struck me, but more than that, just general themes that I saw throughout, and that comes up in some of the verses which I highlight, and I probably highlighted 30 verses, which means we're not going to get through all of them because it'll take us for a long time.
Yeah, these proverbs are. Of course, just sayings that are full of wisdom. They're very pithy, so they're very concise and very, full of meaning. I found it a little bit confusing. I think a lot of these proverbs seem like they contend with each other. That some of these proverbs will say, for instance, a foolish man is like the deep ocean, but the words of the wise are a babbling brook, where it's like still just a water metaphor that just isn't super clear to me. And I think a lot of these, it will compare a wise person does this, a fool does this. But often it seems like they're doing the same thing and it just has a different result. A wise man speaks and everyone listens. A fool speaks and it destroys everyone. Like, okay, that seems like everyone is still listening to the foolish person. It's just destroying them when they listen.
Yeah, the part of that is understanding what proverbs are. They aren't absolute truths. It doesn't say that if this, then the other is automatic. It's just probabilities. So bring up a child in the way he should be, and he won't turn from it. That's the probability, But there's still, it doesn't guarantee that what if you follow the first part of one of these proverbs, the second part is guaranteed, which some people confuse, and they and then they say, well, I'm going to throw out the whole book. But we have we have examples of that in our life all the time. If you speed all the time, eventually you're going to get caught. But some people speed all the time and don't get caught.
Right.
So, yeah. So the theme in Proverbs, there's a few parallel themes that I noticed. One is there's an awful lot of talk about wisdom. Seek wisdom, and they use different metaphors, and how important it is for us to seek wisdom, and how that guides our life and protects our life, and that flows throughout the whole book of Proverbs. Along with that, there was quite a bit of sons, listen to the teaching of your father. That is and that's not just Solomon, the wisest man on earth, speaking, but advice to all young men, that it's wise to listen to your father, even though there's going to be times when your father's going to be wrong. Generally speaking, that having walked before you, the father's going to give you some pointers that are going to keep you from making the same mistakes he made. So, and of course, there are passages which, for me, were some of my favorite passages in Scripture. Chapter 6, go to the ant, O sluggard, and consider her ways, that you may be wise. That just, and the reason is because they don't have a chief or ruler or officer, but they still prepare their food in the summer and gather for their provision. And how long will you sleep? Lie down, O sluggard. When will you rise up from your sleep? A little slumber, a little folding of the hands to rest, and poverty will come upon you like a vagabond. Those are passages which probably were impressed upon me as a kid. My dad used to say stuff like that. If he thought I was, laying around in bed too much, he'd pull out this. And if he thought I wasn't working hard enough, he'd pull out, go to the ant, you sluggard.
Yeah.
And then, which is kind of interesting. I don't think that Scripture ought to be used as a weapon against people.
Yeah.
But it is good when you read it for yourself, when you discover it again and say, wow, man, I didn't really notice that. I think that when we talked about Psalms, I talked about having read Psalms and Proverbs when I was in high school, and Proverbs particularly was instrumental for me to bring my anger under control. And so, reading through it this time all in one sitting, I was surprised at how few references there were to anger, and it just highlights that depending on your season of life, different parts of Scripture will impact you differently.
I think for me that was a highlight that that the Proverbs often have many meanings. And so some of the times you're reading them and you're thinking, like, oh, if I'm supposed to be listening to people, then I shouldn't be angry at them and, ignoring them. But other times you could be thinking, like, something else. If I'm supposed to be listening to people, if that's what a wise person would do, then, I should just start listening to people. And it has nothing to do with anger.
Right.
But I think a lot of these proverbs are so full of meaning and so wide in their scope that they allow us to have those sorts of readings into it.
Right.
Depending on our season of life or however we're reading it in that time.
And also what's happening in the particular day or week that we read it.
Yeah.
The things which are distressful for us today aren't distressful for us, 2 years ago or next year.
Yeah.
But the book of Proverbs is going to speak to our life on probably no matter where we are. We're going to get advice for how to seek wisdom. And so another thing which, along with the emphasis on seeking wisdom, there was this contrast throughout between the righteous and the wicked, between the wise and the fool, and as that goes along, it was easy for me to think, oh, this is the time when I was in the wise camp, and this is a time when I was in the fool camp. Mm-hmm. And I want to be in the wise camp more often than in the fool camp. So just interesting how they that contrast and of what they do, what they think, what they say, and the outcome of their life.
Mm-hmm. I thought it was interesting to me the way that it presents wisdom as accessible, the way that it presents it as something that anyone could grab, that is just always around.
And also foolishness.
Yeah.
Both of them are accessible.
Right.
Yeah, you're right. Not only accessible, I'm sorry to interrupt, but not only is it accessible, but attractive and calling out to us.
Yeah.
And both for wisdom and foolishness. Mm-hmm. And how they the proverb writer likens both wisdom and foolishness to a beautiful woman,
right?
That an alluring woman.
Yeah.
That and you have to make a choice. Are you going to chase after wisdom, or are you going to slide into foolishness?
Right. Yeah, and part of that to me, I don't know how your Bible translates it, but for foolishness, my Bible talks about foolishness as a married woman. And so she's a married woman who comes to try and seduce you. And if you lie with her, then now you're sinned. Now you have been destroyed. Her husband's going to come and destroy you.
Yeah, I think it says in there that that he who commits adultery with his neighbor's wife is going to get punished.
Yeah.
There's not going to be forgiveness.
Mm-hmm. I thought it was interesting, just chapter 9. I joked about calling someone a Proverbs 9 woman, but chapter 9 talks about the way of wisdom and then the way of folly. And it's interesting because it describes them almost identically. It says, wisdom has built her house. She sent out her young women to call from the highest places in the town. And they will say, whoever is simple, let him turn in here. To him who lacks sense, she says, come, eat my bread and drink of the wine I have mixed. Leave your simple ways and live and walk in the way of insight. But then we talk about the woman of folly, and it says, the woman of folly, it says she's loud, she's seductive and knows nothing. She sits at the door of her house, and she calls to those who pass by, saying, whoever is simple, let him turn in here. So she's saying the exact same thing as the woman of wisdom. And to him who lacks sense, she says, stolen water is sweet and bread eaten in secret is pleasant. So she's still offering, a sweet drink and bread, still saying to the people who lack sense. And, then the onus is on the person who is wise or lacks sense,
right,
to decide, is this a fool's errand to come in and eat and drink? Or is this going to be, leaving my simple ways?
Right. That's a good point. Which means that when we pursue wisdom, we have to be wise in how we pursue it.
Yeah.
Which, that's part of the, I think the underlying message here is that as we take steps towards wisdom, we gain more wisdom. That we start to guard our words. Yeah. We start to listen more carefully. Mm-hmm. Even in chapter 9, the woman of folly says, stolen water is sweet. Yeah. Well, right there is a hint. Uh-huh. If something is stolen, maybe that's not what you ought to be going after.
Yeah, I like what you said. Chapter 4 says this, verse 7. The beginning of wisdom is this: get wisdom.
Yeah.
And whenever you get insight. That's what you said, right? Is
Yep.
that in order to become wise, you have to start being wise. And I think that's a difficult thing, right? It's hard to understand. You have to, you have to discern in order to be able to discern.
Right.
And
but we learn that early on. We learn that you don't stick your hand in a hot fire.
yeah,
The next time you see a hot fire, you don't do it.
Yeah.
Now, that may be simplistic, but there are hundreds and hundreds of those types of things which happen where we make a decision. Do we keep doing the same thing and beating our head against the wall, or do we stop beating our head against the wall?
Yeah.
I guess some people like beating their head against the wall, but there's a word for those. It's called they're fools.
Right. Yeah, and the reality is with anything, if you're doing it, you're going to get better at it.
Yeah.
And so, if you are teaching a child how to walk, they're going to first not be very good at it. And as they do it more, they're going to get better and better until you forget that they're like a thing that learned how to walk.
Right.
And, it's that way with musical instruments or speaking a language or anything.
Yeah. Yep. I liked chapter 13, verse 22. A good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children, which means that I'm jumping over you in my will.
Okay.
No.
As long as, like 10:1 says, a wise son makes a glad father. You can skip over me as long as I've made you a glad father. If not, if I'm a foolish son and I'm a sorrow to my mother, I'll take the inheritance.
Okay. But there, it's kind of fun. But when you read this and you can think, hey, how would my parents think of this? How do my sons respond to this?
Yeah.
That's kind of a nice thing. It gives you kind of some comic relief as you're reading through this. And you see this constant battle. Again, I said almost each chapter, it's the contrast between the upright and the wicked, the contrast between the wise and the foolish, and a couple of times we're told about what brings joy in the heart. I think 13:12. I think, yeah, hope deferred makes the heart sick. And then in 14:13, laughter in the heart may be in pain. Even in laughter, the heart may be in pain, but in the end of joy may be grief. It talks about emotions, the emotions of living our life and the ups and downs, and how even through it all, God honors the wise.
Yeah, I thought those were interesting. Specifically 13:12, I thought of this when I was reading it, but just that a lot of these proverbs are not actionable.
Right.
That there's nothing to do about hope deferred makes the heart sick, but as a desire fulfilled is a tree of life. Like there's no I'm going to be wise now and I'm going to do this, or I'm going to be a fool and do this. There's just life happens.
Yep.
And this is how you're going to feel. And there's comfort in reading that people thousands of years ago felt the same way. And there's also that that wisdom that comes with being able to know that.
Yeah.
That in some way it's not actionable. In some way it is. You don't want to give someone false hope because you don't want to make the heart sick. You don't want to leave desires unfulfilled, or you want to fulfill desires, to give them a tree of life.
Yep. On the topic of joy, chapter 15 hits at a bunch of that. A joyful heart makes a cheerful face. When the heart is sad, the spirit is broken. A cheerful heart has a continual feast. Better is a little with the fear of the Lord than great treasure and turmoil with it. Better a dish of vegetables where love is than a fattened ox served with hatred. And then a hot-tempered man stirs up strife, and the slow to anger calms dispute. And then verse 23, a man has joy in an apt answer, and how delightful is a timely word. I was thinking back on that one when we talked about Job, and it seemed to me that the words of Job's advisors weren't very apt.
Yeah.
So the so many places it just through chapter 15, a wise son makes his father glad. Good news puts fat on the bones. Bright eyes gladden the heart. I guess 15 was kind of an uplifting chapter for me.
Interesting.
It ends with the fear of the Lord is the instruction for wisdom, and before honor comes humility. Just how to enjoy life. So that was, to me, a nice chapter.
Yeah.
And then chapter 16, verse 4. The Lord has made everything for its purpose, even the wicked for the day of evil. I found that something I wanted to ponder more. The Lord made the wicked for the day of evil.
Yeah, that's interesting. Mine says, even the wicked for the day of trouble.
Yeah.
But I think 16 is interesting just in general, the way it starts. The plans of the heart belong to man, but the answer of the tongue is from the Lord. All the ways of a man are pure in his own eyes, but the Lord weighs the spirit. And I think just this idea that everyone is thinking that they're doing something wise or pure, and God is going to weigh the spirit, and then of course that everything is for its purpose, and just the uncertainty of that.
Yeah.
And I think for me, it can feel like maybe a sort of worry, like, oh no, am I going to be a wicked man who's made for my purpose of being wicked? Because it doesn't feel like, I don't know, it doesn't feel like it's a changeable thing. It feels immutable, that God has made things wicked, and that's just how it is. And I think about like Judas, betraying Jesus, or I don't know, any of the other stories of people where, as we were reading through this Old Testament, that the people of Israel don't take out everyone out of the lands,
right,
so that God can test them.
Yeah, and people like the Pharaoh who hardened his own heart, and then God hardened his heart.
Right.
And God created them for the day of evil.
Yeah.
Chapter 17, and I'm not trying to rush us through this, but I'm trying to get over, an overview and how some of these things impacted me. Grandchildren are the crown of old men. The glory of sons is their fathers. It's an interesting flip there. So grandchildren are the crown of old guys, and old guys are the glory of their sons.
Yeah.
That was kind of cool. And let's see.
What does your verse 8 say in chapter 17? Because mine has an interesting, translation. A bribe is like a magic stone in the eyes of one who gives it.
Yeah, it says a charm in the sight of its giver or its owner.
Yeah.
I'm going to, because I think it's going to, accomplish good things.
Yeah.
But, that's something which, it doesn't come through a lot here, but the whole idea of a bribe and how wrong it is to bribe and
how wrong it is to receive a bribe.
Yeah, and how wrong it is to thwart the cause of justice through a bribe. Let's see.
I thought verse 16 is interesting. Why should a fool have money in his hand to buy wisdom when he has no sense? I thought that was interesting getting to it. But then later, it talks about, as a command, it says, sons, listen to your fathers, buy wisdom, get wisdom. With whatever you can, purchase wisdom.
But part of the whole talk of the fool is that even if he were to buy it, he wouldn't follow it.
Yeah.
It wouldn't sink in.
For me, there was a distinct contrast between Proverbs, which presents wisdom as a beautiful woman sitting at the gates, shouting out wisdom, declaring to people, "Come and follow me. Come eat bread and drink wine with me. Leave your foolish ways."
Right.
and later saying that you can buy wisdom. Get wisdom, purchase it, get it with everything. It's better to be poor and wise than to be rich and a fool.
Right.
There's a distinct contrast between that description of wisdom and what Job says, which is you can go to a silver mine and mine some silver. You can extract copper from the ground and blacksmith it. You can plant seeds and grow flowers. You can take a male cow and a female cow and get more cows. But there's no way for wisdom to come.
Right. Except there is a way that you can be thought to be wise. It says at the end of chapter 17, even a fool, when he keeps silent, is considered wise.
Yeah.
Just an interesting highlight there. And I would suggest that if a fool is silent long enough and he listens to people around him, there's a chance he's going to move towards wisdom rather than foolishness.
Yeah, and that's part of like the verse right before it. Whoever restrains his words has knowledge. It's like already the beginning of wisdom is get wisdom. The beginning of staying silent to be wise is restraining your words.
Yeah. Yep. Again, we just keep going through the contrast of the upright and the wicked. That's how almost every chapter is the heading for it, because it just consistently shows the difference, and that, in one sense, that's the whole purpose of the book of Proverbs.
Yeah.
To give you a clear vision of the benefits of wisdom and the dangers of foolishness. Chapter 18, a fool does not delight in understanding, but only in revealing his own mind, which contrasts that with 17:28, when a fool keeps silent, he is considered wise, but he's only interested in revealing his own mind.
Yeah.
Which, in one sense, we can understand the depth of someone's wisdom by how much they have to reveal what they're thinking.
And it's interesting, too, because there are little snippets that make me feel like, was this guy's wife reading over his shoulder? Like verse 22. He who finds a wife finds a good thing and obtains favor from the Lord. Like, okay, I didn't know we were talking about this. We were talking about the fruit of a man's mouth and what happens if you're talking. And that's almost all. From verse 2, a fool takes no pleasure in understanding, but only in expressing. All the way down to 21, death and life are in the power of the tongue. And then he who finds a wife finds a good thing. Yeah. It's just an interesting contrast that these don't always flow together super well.
Right. Before we got to that, in the book of Psalms, I kept coming back to, hey, we sing that song. And throughout all of Proverbs, that occurred once. And it was, for me, in chapter 18. The name of the Lord is a strong tower. The righteous run into it, and they are saved. Which I thought was interesting. And, we don't put these proverbs to song very often.
Yeah.
Or at least not songs that I'm familiar with.
Yeah, I know there was at least one other proverb that
you hit.
The whole chapter is a song that I listen to. But it's not a super popular song or anything. It's just a song that I listen to.
Okay.
I don't know which one it was. I thought it was Proverbs 6, but just turning to it, it was not. So I'm not paying the closest attention, especially in a book like this, to the chapter numbers, because it's just a big, in a lot of ways, it's a big long list.
Right.
And if I'm just reading it through all the way, I don't need to know where in the list it is.
So chapters 19 and 20 and 19, 20, and 21 are sort of like instructions on life, or just statements. 21:1, the king's heart is like channels of water in the hand of the Lord. He turns it wherever he wishes.
Yeah.
I actually memorized that in the King James. The heart of the king is like waters like streams of water in the hands of God. He turns it whithersoever He wishes, which is it is a call for us to pray for our leaders.
Yeah.
We may not be able to change their heart, but God can. And those three chapters, they were just laziness cast into deep sleep, an idle man will suffer hunger. Discipline your son while there is hope, and do not desire his death.
Yeah, there's a lot of about discipline also, right? I think in 1925, I thought that was interesting. Strike a scoffer, and the simple will learn prudence. Reprove a man of understanding, and he will gain knowledge. I just thought that was interesting because wisdom before was talking about how wisdom is prudence, or out of wisdom comes prudence. So now, you strike someone, you strike a scoffer, and the simple will become prudent.
Yep.
And then the same way with the man of understanding. Now he doesn't become a man of understanding, but a man of understanding and knowledge.
Yep. So a lot of these chapters, these three chapters, are things where I say, well, duh, differing weights and differing measures, both of them are abomination to the Lord. Well, duh, of course. Mm-hmm. Things you observe. Bad, says the buyer, but when he goes away, he boasts about the good deal he got.
Yeah.
And every man's way is right in his own eyes, but the Lord weighs the hearts.
Yeah.
Differing weights are an abomination to the Lord, and a false scale is not good.
Mm-hmm.
You're
cheating people out of things when you're trying to sell them or buy them. It's not good.
Let's see.
I thought 21:28 was interesting. A false witness will perish, but the word of a man who hears will endure. Just that if you're lying about things, that's going to be not good. But then I don't understand. But the word of a man who hears will endure. I wonder what yours says.
The man who listens to truth will speak forever.
Oh, okay.
Another one that we do well to remember, 21:31, the horse is prepared for the day of battle, but victory belongs to the Lord. Mm-hmm. Again, this brings us back to we don't trust in our neighbors, we don't trust in kings, we trust in the Lord. Train up a child in the way he should go, and even when he is old, he will not depart from it. Again, that is the likelihood. Mm-hmm. It's not a guarantee. And so if you have a wayward son, it doesn't mean that you fail to train him up. Mm-hmm. And then this is interesting, which people are loath to consider. The rich rules over the poor, and the borrower becomes the lender's slave. Mm-hmm. So those that live their life on borrowed money, they are the slaves to those from whom they borrowed.
Yeah.
Again, because I was keyed into this issue of anger, John 24:22, do not associate with a man given to anger, or go with a hot-tempered man. It's easy to think that, he's passionate, mm-hmm. But if his passion is always turning to anger, we don't associate with him.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's, a bunch of these 22, 23, 24 are talking about who should you be around. Should you be around the wise, or should you be around the fools? What's going to happen if you're staying around the wise? Your house is going to be built up. Things are going to be peaceful. You might become rich. Yeah. And if you're staying around the fools, you're going to be a slave to the person who's lending you money. You're going to have your house torn down. You're going to be full of your life is going to be full of strife and quarries.
Chapter 24, verse 13. My son, eat honey, for it is good. Yes, the honey from the comb is sweet to your taste. Mm-hmm. Know that wisdom is thus for your soul. If you find it, then there will be a future, and your hope will not be cut off.
Yeah.
wisdom is sweet. Wisdom is to be desired.
Yeah, I could just imagine a father taking his son out for a lesson in wisdom. He's like, here's a jar of honey, and we're just going to sit in this field until you tell me what the jar of honey means. And eventually he's supposed to be like, well, honey's good. It tastes good. I like it. Yeah. And the dad says, yeah, that's right. That's what wisdom is.
Yeah. And the next one I wrote down was 26:19.
Okay.
This is on...
Yeah, like a madman who throws firebrands, arrows, and death is the man who deceives his neighbor and says, I'm only joking.
It was a joke.
Yeah.
It was a joke. I think of the times when I've tricked someone or I have been tricked, and the response was, it was a joke. I was joking.
Yeah.
And sometimes I want to say, I was hurting you.
Yeah.
You were hurting me. Nice joke. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's hard when there's so much to self-reflect on.
Yep.
So much to think about our own lives.
I think that's one of the things which I've appreciated about this little experiment we've had. 27:17 says, iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another.
Yeah.
And as we endeavor on this, reading through the Bible in 66 days, and then sitting and talking about it, and not everything that we interact with makes it onto this tape, but it helps me to hear your insight, and hopefully vice versa, that it sharpens my mind and in my spirituality.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I was doing this completely selfishly. I was just trying to listen to the wisdom of my father. So,
and I was hoping that my son would listen to my wisdom.
Yeah.
Be a good son and not ashamed to his mother.
So it's just like an added benefit if it's helping you at all. Because I was doing this just for me.
Okay. That's okay. In chapter 29, anger comes up a couple more times. And I think that this time through, rather than focusing on anger, maybe because being retired, I don't have as much interaction with people and much opportunity to get angry at people, although I do still drive, and that does present its own challenges. One of the overriding points of this that I found interesting, having spent my life talking, my whole career was preparing a 30-minute message for every week, and I guess that one of the things that struck me here was a fool is considered wise when he keeps his mouth shut.
Yeah.
That listening is a good thing, and sharing every thought of my mind is not considered wise. That for me was telling.
Yeah.
And then we're going to come to chapter 31.
Well, I like chapter 30. Chapter 30 is maybe my favorite chapter in the Bible.
Okay. I am more stupid than any man.
Yeah, I feel that. Like, I relate to that so much. Surely I am too stupid to be a man. I have not the understanding of a man. I have not learned wisdom, nor have I knowledge of the Holy One.
Okay,
For me, this felt like a mirror of Job in that same way. He asks these questions. Who has ascended to heaven and comes down? Who has gathered the wind in his fists? Who has wrapped up the waters in a garment? Who has established all the ends of the earth? What is his name and what is his son's name? Surely you know. Just that's the way that God comes down to Job.
Right.
That he says, he's asking those same questions. Have you ascended to heaven and come down?
Yep.
Have you gathered the wind in your fists? Have you seen the storehouses laden with snow?
My response to that is that the fact that you can embrace and see yourself in verse 2 and 3.
Mm-hmm.
Surely I am more stupid than a man, is not I don't think it's a sign of insecurity, but humility. That is part of what Proverbs has talked about. A man of wisdom is full of humility.
Yeah.
You are not one who's going to say, "Hey, I'm the smartest man in a room."
Yeah. I think it is both ways for me. It's when I'm feeling stupid, I just feel this way. Surely I'm too stupid to be a man. But also when I'm feeling like, oh, I'm so smart, I'm so great, I'm so wise, I think it's natural to feel that way sometimes. And when I do feel that way, I remember, the man declares, I am weary, O God. I am weary, O God, and worn out. Surely I am too stupid to be a man. Remember. This is a way that you can be feeling. This is the way you felt in the past. Don't be overcome by your feelings of being smart.
Yeah.
And then I think also, I love these.
There are 3 things. No, 4.
Yeah, there are 2 things I ask of you. Verses 7, 8, and 9. Take away falsehood and lying. Don't make me rich or poor. Just give me what I need.
Yeah.
And then these things. 3 are too wonderful for me. 4 I don't understand. There are 3 things that are never satisfied. 4 that never say enough. Just things that they make you think like, oh, okay. A thing that's never satisfied is an eye that mocks a father. Okay, so if I want to be satisfied, I shouldn't be mocking my father. If I want to understand something that's wonderful, think about these things. The way of an eagle in the sky, the way of a serpent on the rock, the way of a ship on the high seas.
If you want to figure out what things are wise, look to the small things.
Yeah.
Ants and shephanim. What does yours say in verse 26?
It says rock badgers.
Rock badgers.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so a shephanim is a rock badger.
Yeah, according to the ESV translators, but it's an animal that they don't know what it is.
Okay.
And so they've put in, as far as I understand, they've put in rock badgers because of the way the King James Bible translates it.
Ah, okay.
So, because the King James Bible did a lot of this, of you take animals and you replace it with something that happens in England.
Okay.
And so the King James put rock badgers in there, as far as I understand. And the ESV translators just know that people that speak English know what a rock badger is. And so they're just going to leave it there and not... What does yours say?
It's interesting. The New American Standard just puts shephanim.
Yeah, just some random Hebrew word.
A random Hebrew word that nobody knows how to translate, I guess. So, chapter 30 is interesting because it's got all those lists, and those give you pause and reason to ponder. Mm-hmm. I suppose if you wanted to, you could create a little sermon series on 3 things, no 4. 3 mm-hmm. things, no 4.
Yeah. So. I think for me, what it seems like is these are things that you can consider and ponder, and you can go outside. Pretty much anyone can go outside and spill a little lemonade or something sweet and see some ants come by.
Yep.
And then you could just watch the ants and you think about them, and while you're doing that, you'll learn wisdom. You'll learn all the other proverbs. They can be amounted into just go watch an eagle in the sky and you'll understand what is wonderful. Go watch an ant provide for itself. Go watch the lizards. Go pick it up. You can take it anywhere you want. And yet, it can actually still just go in the house of a king.
Yep.
And you think about that and you're like, oh, okay, so I don't need to be the biggest, strongest, best, most rich person or whatever.
Yeah.
I was wondering, what does your verse 31 say?
Mine has a weird... The strutting rooster, the male goat also, and a king when his army is with him.
Okay, interesting. Because mine says the strutting rooster, the he-goat, and a king whose army is with him. But then it has a footnote that says instead of rooster, it could mean magpie Or it could mean girt of loins. I don't know what girt of loins is. I mean, I guess it's a bird?
No, that's the someone who has prepared for battle.
Interesting.
Gird up your loins. Remember, they typically wore robes, and they girt their loins. They tied up the robes so they're more like pants, so they could actually move around.
Interesting. Without flashing everyone, I guess.
So we come to the end of Proverbs, and the words of Lemuel, the first 9 verses, have nothing to do with women. Well, except that the oracle which his mother taught him.
Yeah.
But Proverbs 31 woman starts at verse 10. And, most people have heard this, and, it's an excellent wife. She does good things. She makes money. She saves money. She's kind, and she's a benefit to her husband.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing really to add. It's just, Maidens' charm is deceitful, beauty is vain. A woman who fears the Lord is to be praised.
Yep.
Give her the fruit of her hands, and let her works praise her in the gates.
Yeah.
I thought it's interesting. An excellent woman. A thing about her is that her husband is known in the gates when he sits among the elders of the land.
Yeah.
That there are some things that are, that are about her, but some things that are about, like who her husband is, who her children are.
Yep. So that's Proverbs.
Yeah. I guess there's one more I wanted to mention, just the last verse of chapter 33. For pressing milk presses curds, pressing the nose produces blood, and pressing anger produces strife. I just think that's a funny thing.
Yeah.
It's just funny. Milk, and then nose, and then anger. It's like, if you're thinking about milk, if you're thinking about how to make a milk food, you might just be thinking, okay, pressing milk produces curds. Like, oh, good advice. I'll try that. Like, oh, pressing the nose produces blood. Like, where are we even going with this?
Yeah.
Like, oh, if you press someone's nose, it's going to produce blood, and they're going to get angry at you.
Yeah. I was using different words for it. The churning of milk produces butter. Mm-hmm. That. The pressing of the nose brings forth blood. The churning of anger produces strife.
Interesting.
That churning, that stirring up of anger, which a lot of people become pretty adept at. They review that anger in their mind over and over and over again. They lack forgiveness.
Yeah, I guess you can't turn a nose.
No.
So
I could try turning yours, but I don't want to see it.
Yeah, churning milk produces curds. Churning the nose produces blood. I guess, if you put my nose in a turner, it would probably bleed. I do kind of like my translation better just because it's pressing all of them.
Yeah, I understand that. All right, well, that's the book of Proverbs. Again, it does take some commitment to reading it. I forget how long it took me, probably an hour and a half, I think.
Yeah, I think that's how long it took me.
But, most of us tend to waste more than an hour and a half a day.
Mm-hmm. It seems like the beginning of wisdom is to get wisdom, and the end of wisdom is, no, there's no end of wisdom. Keep trying.
Yeah. Yep. So, we'll see you next time.